All right, welcome back to the Any Given Day podcast. I think you're my third, maybe. Well, I have to say guest from Europe, but not European guest, because I've had, I think, 3 on from Europe, and 2 of you have been Americans, although people are probably think that you're calling him from Scotland right now with that most glorious beard.
I wish I would be calling him from Scotland right now, but absolutely.
That would have been, well, then you would have had to stay up to watch the Scotland-Morocco game.
I wouldn't have had a choice. Yeah. Kilt and all.
Choice. Wait a minute, with a kilt? Do underpants happen with a kilt?
It depends on if it's summer or winter, but, usually I just go year-round without them.
Okay, I like that call. That is the right answer. It's the only answer, right?
That's the only answer, yeah.
Dude, I should probably announce you. This is John Mackersie, folks.
Hi.
I was gonna say, if you're listening, he's waving right now, so you have to listen real close so that you can see the waving. And what you'll capture if you're watching is that John has the most glorious beard, and I have just a touch of beard envy because I didn't have that. I've never had that, but I did bring mine down recently, so I'm running running it tight right now. No, I'm not bringing a razor. I do. I'm not bringing a razor to my face.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. You want to tell us where you are right now?
Yeah. So obviously from Europe, but I was telling Nate before we got on that we're actually transitioning, moving back to the U.S. in the next couple of weeks, and our household goods get picked up on Monday. And the wife and I were talking, and it was like, man, next weekend is going to be kind of hectic, and we have a little meetup with our kids' friends and things like that, and to see as many people as we can before we go. And so this weekend was kind of open, and we've been crushing it this week, kind of prepping for the movers. And I was like, all right, cool. So we can either continue doing that, but we feel like we're in a good place and we're ready, or we can just kind of get away from it all and just de-stress for a little bit. So we took some last minute flights to Greece. So I'm actually in a hotel room in Crete right now. So we've been crushing it at the pool for, man, better part of 9 hours today. So the kids and I will all sleep very well tonight. So the kids are out at the pool with the mom right now. So we're just just grabbing a little reprieve from the sun and all that stuff for a little bit.
What do you think are the chances that you make it to the 9 p.m. dance party tonight?
I'm going to say 80% out of sheer willpower and stubbornness.
And a whole lot. Are you going to mainline caffeine for the kids?
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, I know we haven't introduced coffee before, but I think you're hitting that age.
Yeah. Here, let's maybe try a Coke or a Dr. Pepper. Let's start there.
That's probably, okay, fair enough. That's probably a good start. Let's not go straight to the hard stuff.
No, we'll save that for us.
Man, and how long have you guys been in Europe now?
Just shy of 7 years. So we moved here in September 2019.
That's wild.
Yeah, so we almost made it.
It feels like it was yesterday that you were here in town prepping to head over.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and I explicitly remember that summer and those couple of months leading into that. I remember the flight coming over. I remember the first meal I had coming over, and that was almost 7 years ago. And it's absolutely wild to see where we are, and especially considering the fact we flew over here with one kid, and Amanda was pregnant with our second, and then now we are flying back with 3 kids. And it's you think about it, like back in the day, 4 years of high school seems so long.
Yeah.
Like freshman year, You're like, dude, I'm never going to make it. And then you get into college and it seems even longer. It's like, dude, like, when is this going to end? And then, now I've blinked and it's 7 years later. It's absolutely wild.
That is complete insanity. I don't know about you, but like, I don't feel older than I did when I saw you last. Like when I saw you last here, not when I saw you last, but
I've told my wife this before. I feel, I probably look a little different, but I feel the exact same as I did when I'm 25, 30 years. I remember turning 30 And I was like, oh, yeah, this is cool. Like, I've reached a new decade and we just bought our first house and, all these milestones. And I just turned 40. What was that? 4 months ago. And I feel the exact same. I feel like I can do the exact same things I did. And like that gets, pretty stoked for that actually. I mean, I might get tired a little earlier and that's cool. But in terms of physical stuff and mental stuff, I feel like I'm there, which is great.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. Like at 40, I'm 45, and I, yeah, I will say like some of the recovery can be a little longer from certain things. Like if I go do, a little bit bigger of an endeavor, a longer ride or whatever it is, like like I was talking to somebody and I was like, if I went back to Ranger, like I'd have to train for it a little, but if I went back, I could pass the physical events for sure. In fact, I could given enough time to train, I could probably pass them better than I did when I was young and dumb. In part because of that, getting tired early and going to bed earlier. But it's the like relentlessness of the day in, day out that I don't know if I could handle. Like I don't know if I could just like wake up and do it again, wake up and do it again.
I don't
Uh,
know if I don't know if you couldn't or if you just wouldn't want to.
that that
Like you go back into like you think back into college sports and you're like, I could. Like physically, I think I'm there. I'd like to think I'm there.
hmm
I'm probably not, but mentally, I'm 100% there. But you reach a point and you're like, I think I'm okay. Like I'm just not sure I would choose to do that. I think I would choose to do different things now.
Well, and that's saying something, man. Because like, I mean, you are, which means you certainly were a physical specimen. I'm just gonna say it. I know you're gonna be like, no, but no, you're a physical specimen, dude.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's changed. Training's changed a little bit, and especially since I stopped playing all levels of sports a few years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but I played well into my mid upper 30s and to some capacity of something, and I'm cool with that. But yeah, like you gotta figure out what you got to do every day and every week, and yeah, and just keep building blocks a little bit.
So I love this because part of the reason that I wanted, so I should put this out. So John's one of, I think, only the second guest now who doesn't directly come from the military community. In other words, John's not a military veteran. We'll get into that he's still super tightly tied to the military community, though. But part of the point of the podcast is that it's both from and for veterans. And sometimes I think the best messages for veterans don't necessarily come from within the from the voices or from the mouths of other veterans. I think they can come from other perspectives that we can relate to in other ways. So like you and I in some ways in both having, well, let me go back in time a little bit. Like when you were here before you went to Germany, you just sent me that photo of us with our kiddos and our backpacks walking around the park, and like you said, you had one and then one more on the way, and then you've had another one since. So obviously you're living the professional dad life, and at the same time of navigating an important role overseas and all the world travel and everything else. So you just said it, man, and that's without prompting, which I love, which is you feel like you did when you were 25. You feel like you could still go play college sports. And what I see so much of is folks, either when they get out of service or as people are kind of aging within the service, it's amazing how they'll use both age and life, and in particular, having kids as like a reason to lose their fitness.
Hmm.
And I think that's so ironic because I feel like, one, from a reason perspective, it's a reason to stay fit, right? Like, oh shit, I'm always thinking like, how old am I going to be when Lachlan's whatever? And then I'm thinking like two things. Like one, he's in high school, I better still be able to kick his ass. And then and then two, like I want to be able to do as many cool things with him for as long into life as possible, right? And so like you're somebody who was an athlete at a high level. You feel like you've been able to maintain that fitness. How do you feel like you've been able to do that?
I think definitely some trial and error, right? So you figure out what training used to look like and what training is now. But I think the underlying tone of that is you still train. And I think the mentality of that is more important than the physicality of that, especially as you get older. And we know that we know that things change, and that's fine. And I'm not squatting and deadlifting multiple times a week like I was, and I found my sweet spot for that. But the point is, I wake up and I get training in early, and it doesn't matter. And it's a really non-negotiable, because if I miss a training session, then I have that inner person talking to me all day, that I ultimately just let myself down, and what that looks like to let my family down. And I know that's probably blowing it up a little bit too big, but it goes back to little things like, you know, one, you do hard things, and you have to do hard things, and you have to figure that out. So for me, that's waking up early, and that's not eating certain things, and that's training, when I don't want to, when my garage is super cold or hot or whatever. And two, just looking at, having, what does that look like to your kids? And just saying like, hey, dad says he's going to do this, and when he says he does it, he does it. And then that parlays into, oh, well, can I see if I can do some pull-ups as well? Like, yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, let's do that.
Heck
And
yeah.
so I think, you just got to find a way to make it a daily constant. And it doesn't matter if it changes or not, but it has to be there. And I think it just goes back to, listening to you kind of talk about, when people get older and they use that as an excuse to lose fitness. And I get it. Like, things change, and we, it's just not as fun sometimes, or you have priorities that are different. You and I both have things going on right now that we didn't have going on 10 years ago. But I think too, like, you grow up in a culture that, it's ingrained in you, and it's part of you, and you never can let that part of you die. And so I think when that's part of you, it never goes away, and you always have to keep that flame lit a little bit. And it doesn't matter what it is, that keeps it going, but you have to find something. And for me, that's weightlifting, and that's always my bread and butter, and that's where
Yeah.
I found the first love in the weight room. And that's really kind of what helped me justify being like not as great of an athlete to a slightly better not as great of an athlete. And but those have shifted, right? So I still train, and that's still important, but now it's okay, let's see what kind of trail we can go hike on, and let's see what kind of mountain we can summit, and let's see what climbing we can go with the kids on. Let's see what via ferrata we can do. And I'm going to practice not tying with the kids, so when we get into a situation and we repel or do whatever, like, we can do that. And so you just start to slowly layer and tie those things in for what is truly your, like, it's you. And you just figure out ways to fold your kids into that, and you just envelop them into that lifestyle.
So I love too how you just started to talk about like layering in these different skills onto your fitness. And I think that's part of the beauty too of like staying fit is it enables you, right? And so now you are a capable human, and so you can operate in these spaces where like, hey, the physical component isn't even a thought. You're not like, oh, can I make that hike? Instead, it's like, okay, how can I do this better or more efficiently, or teach my kids along the way, or pick up a new, skill set with regard to climbing, or whatever it is. So now, like, even though it is a main focus, it also becomes a vehicle for other things.
Yeah, and I think too, you're just opening up doors for them, and you see where they take it, which is super cool to watch. And my oldest son loves doing that, and my middle son, I think, just likes it because the oldest likes it, and he's still trying to figure out what he likes. But the point is, we just want to expose him and all three of our kids to as much as we can, and just see what they bite on. And whatever they bite on, we've always told them, hey, I don't really care what you do, but whatever you do, you dive into it. And so I think just starting early and exposing them to as many things as you can, and just and seeing and being as supportive as you can on that is super important.
Yeah, and you just kind of see what sticks, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you talked about love of the weight room. Can we go back in time a little bit about where that started for you, like your passion for training and that environment?
Yeah, so it was so when I was in 8th grade, and that was 1999. I only remember that because we had won like the 8th grade championship and we thought we were the coolest dudes ever. Right.
Yes.
And then we went into the weight room for the first time and we had mandated uh, weightlifting sessions in 8th grade if you're going to play high school football in 9th grade. So you had your own lifting session. And looking back on it, we were really advanced in terms of what we did and how we did that. And the programming wasn't fancy, but it was a simple fact that it was just a integrated part of the program. And it's what you did. If you wanted to play, this is also part of that. And, we thought we were the coolest things ever. And I remember specifically getting into one lift, and I can still see this preacher curl bar. And we had 2 sets of 10, and I couldn't curl it at all. And I was like super pissed, right? Because I'd obviously been on the side reading every flex magazine there was. And I was like, well, I can do that. Like, we just won 8th grade championship. But then I couldn't curl a bar. And then so that was the next thing that I had to beat. And so that just grew and grew and grew. And we had to, not only did we have to do lifting, we had to get 90% attendance through the spring and the summer to play freshman ball. So I knew I was going to be there. I, and I just absolutely dove into it. And I just remember summers were centered around weightlifting. And it was true for my dad as well. My dad was a coach. And so, you know, you only had 2 weeks of dead period in the middle of summer. So last week of June, first week of July. And if it wasn't those 2 weeks, we were in the weight room. And I never left. And I just remember thinking like how much I loved it. And it was almost at times like football and other sports took a back seat because I just love lifting that much. I love the camaraderie of the weight room. I love struggling with people, and I love, partnering up with people and just and seeing a different side of them. And man, like I don't think that's ever left me, and that was 26, 27 years ago. And I still explicitly remember that. And that was still probably the coolest part of my life. And I love playing college football as well. But those middle school into high school lifting sessions really that was the foundation that just lit.
Dude, I think a couple things about that. So one, I think it's really important for people to hear that, like, day zero, man, you couldn't move the bar,
No, I
right?
was
Like,
so pissed. I was so pissed.
because there's
I was
definitely
so pissed.
there's a natural and I'll even say it, dude, because like you and I are almost like we're about the same height. We're probably even close in weight. I don't really know, but like you are worlds stronger than me. And so it would be easy for me to be like, well, that's just John. He's just strong. Like he's just born strong. He is, you know what I mean? And instead it's like, no, the dude couldn't move the bar. He looked at that as a challenge. He dove all in on the weight room, and he's stayed in all in on the weight room now for, since 99. So we're talking like 27 years. And it's like, that's why John is so damn strong. Right. And I think it becomes easier as we get to be adults for us to just point at someone and just say, oh, they just have that. That's just inherent.
Hmm.
And we tend to overlook the layers of work that they did to get there, in the same way that somebody's really unfit and it's easy for them to be like, oh, this is just like where I am, or like this is life. Or it's like, this is the accumulation of your decisions over the course of the last 20 something years. It ain't your metabolism changing, bro. Right? Like, it's just like
Yeah.
you've been doing all this beneath the surface. You've been moving this direction, whether you like it or not. So it's like you can move in one or two directions. And I think the speed can be hard, but I don't think the trajectory is that hard, because the trajectory is immediate and it's determined by like your decisions right now, right? Like if I like today decide I'm going to eat better, I'm going to do some fitness, my trajectory is going to immediately improve, even if I can't unwind, years of doing, or let's call it years of making precarious decisions, right?
Yeah. And I think like, yeah, it's just the big accumulation. Just like, one meal doesn't ruin you, one meal doesn't save you. One lift's not going to ruin you, one lift's not going to save you. But, I think everybody's at least felt a little bit of that when you make a hard decision like, okay, I'm going to train, whatever that looks like to you. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to get some guidance, all that. We know that physiologically, you didn't make much change within the first 2 weeks, right? But like, how much better do you feel mentally? And like, you can look at yourself in a mirror in a week and be like, I look pretty good,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
we know that nothing's truly changed that much. But then, just making those decisions to start that trajectory in the in the right way, in the right direction. And then, sure, you're making a little bit of physical change, but your mental game is going to lead that as well. And then those two just start snowballing. And what do you look like, in 5 months, 10 months, whatever? It's the same thing as like, I mean, that's true with anything in life, right? Like eating, lifting, saving money. Like, and I think, I want $1,000 today, sure. But like, if I start putting $5 a week away, that's still $5 more than I had, and that's the direction we have to go. And we have to,
Yeah.
and those are a lot of conversations we have with guys is just, just start making smaller decisions today and then see what those decisions build to in a month. And then let's just start there. Let's not get overwhelmed with 6 months or 12 months away.
Yeah. It's I used the phrase a couple days ago, like action is the antidote. Somebody was feeling like, oh, they got this big hill to climb, and they were talking about like, where do I begin? And I'm like, don't worry about like where you're trying to get to and like this massive beast in front of you. I'm like, today, like take action right now. What's the thing you can do right now to start to move the needle in that direction?
Yes, it's perfect is the enemy of good. And sometimes like just do something good, and like that good will build a great will build to perfect eventually.
I know I talk about it all the time because Hunter used to talk about it with us is, go from shit to sucks to good to great. And I'm always talking about like with biking, I'm definitely in the trying to move from shit to sucks still. And every once in a while, when I put some days together, I'm like, I'm solid in sucks right now. Like I've
Yeah.
got it. I can almost see good on the horizon.
Yeah, 100, and that's man, and I'm going to expose myself a little bit here, but I'm going to bring it back to working on my weakness as well, and that's anything conditioning because I absolutely hate it. I'll be honest with you, I hate it. And I think that's why like my hobbies counter that because in my mind, you know, trying to rationalize that, I'm like, okay, well, you couldn't pay me enough money to run a mile some days, but if you're like, hey, this hike only has like 2,000 feet of gain, I'll be like, done, let's do it. So, trying to tie hobbies into that, but um, you go back into training, you just find like I think one of the biggest things you can do is just find out what disappoints you when you can't do it. And then you
Yeah.
just do that. And I'll go back to Winter Strong 1, and you were there because I was on your team. And then
Yeah.
we run out right on that obstacle course,
Yep.
and then we had to pick up that 100-pound sandbag and carry it back.
That was
And I was
fucking
like, I'll be fine. Like I'm not out of shape. I'm fine. And I was 100% humbled by that sandbag that day. And I still think about that day.
dude.
And
I
so,
remember Laura crushing that thing.
right. And I was
It's
just like, oh my gosh, dude, like
I know.
I can't be like this anymore, you know?
Oh,
And so like, since that day, I've taken decided measures to change hobbies and training structure to counter that. And
damn.
so, and it's not perfect, at all. And I'm still not good, but I'm better. But I think the point is like and this goes to anybody, like just having the ability to kind of analyze yourself and just figure out like, when you look back on it, what really disappoints you? Like if I miss a lift, I've missed 1,000 lifts. Like that's just another day. It doesn't really disappoint me. But if I can't hang with people, and usually that evolves around conditioning, that really pisses me off. And so no matter how much I hate it, it's not an option. I have to do it. And so that's kind of what has changed training over the past however many years. I
When
still
you
lift, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but
When you were talking about the camaraderie of the weight room and doing hard things together, my mind immediately went back to the settings where I've done that, right? And so like where you went weight room and I went probably more military. So I went more in a conditioning realm. And so used to, the rucking and climbing hills and being outside and like elevating the heart rate and with other people in a suffering setting and like unknown distances, stuff like that. And so like it's almost my weight room in my mind. And so I've had almost the alter experience of not realizing how weak I was and then being in a weight room setting. And, I remember the first time at Rangers with like 135 on the bar, and dudes are like, guy gets under and reps it, guy gets under, reps it, I get under it. And like, I'm
Yeah,
stuck. And so for me, I guess it became a little bit more of a challenge in that way. So like, I think in the same way you approach conditioning is similar to how I've approached strength, which is I make sure to keep enough of it in that it's not my weakness, but I also still prioritize probably more of like the conditioning type of route.
sure. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, everybody's going to have a priority, but as long as that just doesn't blind you to the other side. And I think
Yes.
that's the key. And those are some of the hardest conversations. And you've had those with people, and I know I have as well. But anytime you try to explain what weak, because nobody wants to be told what they're weak at all, right?
Yeah.
So, but trying to frame that in a conversation and being like, hey, if we did A, you're already really good at B, and that would just make it like better. So
Yes.
let's just incorporate that. And that's kind of where, the art of coaching comes in, is like, because what that conditioning looks like could look a million different ways. Same thing with people can get stronger a million different ways. So you have to figure it out, and you have to do a little bit of smoke and mirrors sometimes too, but and give them something they like. But yeah, I think anytime you can slowly work towards that conversation of, hey, let's have a sit down, like really good heart to heart about what really disappoints you and what you're not good at, and then let's figure out ways to get better. And then and that's probably a multi-year process, but if you can get there, like, man, that's the golden ticket right there.
And I will say the one thing that makes it really hard to be influential in those conversations is when somebody is apathetic. So kind of back to the beginning of the conversation, I feel like that's why it should be easier to have that conversation with somebody who's a parent because they have an immediate, undeniable reason to care. You can't pretend you don't care about the welfare of your child, and
Have to.
the welfare of yourself is directly connected. It's impossible to ignore that. And so if
Hmm.
somebody cares in that way, then I feel like you have an opening to have some influence from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, and I think, like, you talk about, like, you're instantly vested in that, from the moment they come out, right? And um and I still have to have this conversation with myself some as well. And my wife and I have this conversation, but just looking at, sometimes you have to be selfish, and that's okay. And, if I have to take 30 minutes, like if something pops up in the morning and I have to, all right, cool, I'm going to take the dog out and throw a ruck on, and I'll be back in 45 minutes. Like, sometimes that's a really hard decision to make, because you feel like every minute, every second of every day should be vested towards other people. And for me, that's my wife and my kids. But understanding that, one, you're, kind of going back to the beginning of the situation, we're leading by example. And, I think that having kids see you do certain things really pays dividends down the road. Two, it allows an avenue for them to join you eventually. And I think selfishly, that's really cool also. But at the end of the day, like, especially if it's physically or mentally improving you, you're only adding time that you're going to be around them. And I think that's nobody's going to argue against that. So I think just trying to have that conversation with people, because a lot of people sacrifice themselves for other people,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like, that says a lot about people when they do that. But sometimes they just need to make sure that they're priority one, and they need to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to be the best version of yourself if you want to be strong enough to take care of other people and not have that totally drain you too, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't draining, right? And you go to bed some nights and you're just absolutely exhausted, and you just roll over and you feel like your alarm just went off, and we've all been there. But I think, and this was actually something that was in my head. I was like, maybe we'll talk about this, but um, because I've had a few good conversations about this, just talking about being selfish to yourself, and you feel draining, and how do you refill your cup, especially when you're just constantly surrounded by people that need you and you want to be there for them all the time. And for my wife, she's an absolute rock star, and so you look at all this time, and I always nagged her about taking time away. Like, you just need to take a day or two off. Like, you just need to do it, and she just could never do it, right? So one day, fortunately, this turned out well for me. But one day, I get on the computer and I book a hotel for a weekend, and I'm just like, your reservation's made. You leave tomorrow. I'll see you on Sunday. And that was 4 years ago. And so every year since then, uh, she has one weekend a year that she can do whatever she wants. And the only stipulations is there are no kids and no spouses allowed. So if she wants to make it a girl trip, she can. That first year she went and she literally just read books by a pool for 2 days and didn't talk to anybody. Fine. Totally fine. And don't get me wrong, like, I get one of those weekends every year as well. But the point is, like, we give each other time to do that, so that all the other weekends and the days, there's no excuse to be worried about that anymore.
Yeah. Dude, I absolutely love that. So two things I want to make sure that well, one, we've been talking about it, but not directly, but you're the dad of three boys.
I have 3 boys, yeah.
Three boys. And like three high energy, crush the world boys. At least
They
according to
were
Paul.
they were full tilt 24/7. And
Hell yeah.
I'm talking like they wake up ready to rock at 5:36 in the morning. And I mean, and they go to bed pretty well. Like, I think part of that is just because they're so, like, full speed all day. And that's also, I think, another reason why, I think I almost have to have these hobbies and things like that. So, like, we have to make sure that we can't have passive activities that don't drain energy a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they're 8, 6, and 4, and they're just all in it all the time, and it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. Are we sure we want to get these boys together? It's like,
Yeah,
dude,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
because we're gonna have Lachlan in the mix, so it'll be 8764. I better check the
Yeah, no,
insurance on the house.
yeah, I feel like at that point, that's the least of our worries. I think a grocery bill is probably going to be higher than any insurance claim we have to worry about.
That's man, yeah. Have you guys done the math on that yet for the future?
We roughly budget for food, but I think we pay more attention to the budget on so many other things that we don't have to, and I think
Yeah.
part of that is because we don't want to. And because if we really tallied it up, I think we'd be a little overwhelmed.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing I want to make sure that I get to is what brought you to Germany.
Yeah, so I was strength coach for the military starting in 2014. So I was serving in that role, and then just networking, and you get to know people, and at that time, because you're in that world as well, it was so small. And so, like, if you're involved in that world, you knew everybody. And I was super fortunate that a position opened up for another unit in Germany, and I knew the person, and he asked me, "Hey, I know it's a big move. I don't know if you're interested, but I'm going to be coming back, and if you would want to take my spot, um, you should at least apply for it." And blah blah. And I, without a doubt, I don't even think I asked Amanda for that when I was like, "She'll be totally cool with it." Yeah, 100%. Count me in. And one thing led to another, and I applied, and talked to a few people, and then got it, and then yeah, that was. So I went purely for work, but it's opened so many doors for me, just professionally and personally, that man, like it's been, I mean, I know I'm still young enough to have a lot of work in front of me, but I mean, this has been a super pivotal chapter in my life, not only for just kids and relationships, but just what I've been able to do and what I've been exposed to. I'm beyond fortunate and lucky to be in this situation, and I'm excited to close it and open the next one. But man, it's been so cool.
How many trips you think you've taken since you've been over there?
Ooh, so I had to refill out my clearance paperwork not too long ago, and I
Oh,
think yeah,
Lord.
for locations, and I think I counted like 45 total trips since the last time I renewed that. So
Yeah.
we'll go with that.
Dang. Yeah, that's I think that's important to mention too, because like I do know some guys who live in the weight room and they don't ever apply anything they're doing there to the rest of the world, right? Like, I mean, I'll just say it. I used to give him shit for it all the time. Like Hunter used to say no to everything because like he was just weightlifting and like that was everything. And so like, hey, you want to go snowboarding? Like, nope, weightlifting. You want to go on this hike? Nope, weightlifting. And like, whereas for you, you've kept the lifting up, but you've also incorporated like tons of travel. It seems like most of the travel that you guys do has a pretty high physical element.
Hmm.
Like you're always, posting just killer views and hikes and scenery and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is probably going to sound like one of the brattiest comments I've ever made, but when I go to a European city, it just doesn't do it for me. And like after a while, you see like, oh man, that castle's really cool, and I appreciate the history, but it just doesn't do it. And really, like the memories that stick out to me are, the trips where I really get to know a place, and that for me personally, that's never in a city, and it's always a hike or a view or a point, and that usually leads to a hole in the wall restaurant or a person on a trail that you run into that invites you for, a coffee or a beer later or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, we started with some of those trips, and we've been called crazy a few times, and rightfully so. But man, like they've been totally worth it. They've been absolutely worth it. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely no better tasting beer than the one at the end of a trail, right? Like,
Oh, dude, like it is, yeah, it is the best beer ever. It's just the coldest, the best. It could be literally anything, but it would just be the best ever. But yeah, um, yeah, and I know some of those hobbies have changed a little bit over the years and or morphed into to fit our lifestyle. But I sent you pictures not too long ago of when my wife and I did a Via Ferrata and summited that ridge line, and that was like one of the coolest things I've ever done. You're up 1,500 meters and you're walking on a 1 meter wide ridge line. It's just like, I just remember we made a comment afterwards and it was like, how does like the thought of going to the mall stress me out like beyond measure? But like I'm standing up, I'm looking down like a 3,000 foot face and it does not bother me at all. And I think the coolest part is I just like, it's like little things that you remember, right? Like you're standing on this ridge line and like you look around and you don't hear anything. It was like it was so surreal. Like I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like there's no noise, like we don't have phones. Like this is like we're just reading signs and we're just it was
yep.
so cool.
Dude, no people, no parking lot. And, it's, I think about the few times we've been, and like I haven't done like backcountry skiing stuff yet, but even just the few times the resort skiing where we're out early, we're making first tracks, it's snowing, and like it's just dead quiet. And like it's so surreal. It's so awesome. And recently, Paul and I went for an amazing ride and up at Buffalo Creek. And this is one of the reasons I love Colorado, of course. Like the proximity to what you're describing is there, and so it's pretty easy, on a weekend or even just like a morning of a weekend to bounce away and be on another universe where there's no people. But I remember we got there. It's kind of a dead parking lot. We got there fairly early. Went, rode. Had this like 3.5 hours of just complete beauty. Yeah, we saw a few other mountain bikers out there, but for the most part, nothing. And then we get back to the parking lot, and it was like packed and
Oh
crowded
yeah.
and like people and it was just like, and like Paul was just like, like where are these people? And of course he can remember, he's like, there didn't used to be, all these people here
There
and
used
all.
to not even be a parking lot here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but it is funny how instantly that it kind of like changed the vibe of the ride. I mean, it didn't like ruin it or anything. Don't get me wrong, but it definitely was
Sure.
like, the return to civilization.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a downer sometimes, but yeah, like anytime you can find that and like just kind of escape and just be out and
Yeah.
some of the coolest trips we've ever been on.
So how much do you deal in kind of your day to day in coaching in a military population? Like how much are you dealing in, I guess, kind of like not just operational fitness or operational, I guess, performance would be the buzzier word, but just sort of like helping guys navigate how to make it more of a permanent piece of their identity or a permanent piece of their life when it's no longer like, when they're no longer connecting it to mission, I guess.
I would say the vast majority. I think like I mean, if I had to put a number on it, I would say probably at least 70 to 80%. And usually those and I would say the other remaining percentage might start as a X's and O's talk, but it always goes back to, well, I either want to do this because of this, or I feel like I'm limited and I can't do this because of this. And then that conversation immediately goes to, okay, well, tell me about that. Like, why can't you do that? Or why don't you feel like you can't do that? Um, just walk me through that. And usually like those conversations, like there's no telling where those will go. And that's the whole point of it, right? Like you just want to, sometimes those guys just need to talk about it and that's cool. And sometimes we end up at a completely different point than what they thought they were going to be at, because they realized that they can do it, and we kind of gave them the support and confidence that they needed to make that decision, or we changed that decision and tweaked it slightly to fit it a little bit better. Because sometimes you want to be stuck in the old ways and make sometimes some unrealistic decisions, and we still need to talk about how we can still obtain what you want, but the road to get there might just look a little different. But man, I would say most of those talks are go down side roads of life and kids and dogs and trips that you're going to take this weekend and whatever. Because let's be honest, those are the things that affect training. You need to figure those out first anyway.
Yeah.
Like, training doesn't really matter if that's either if they think that's always going to be in the way, or they haven't figured out a way to either involve that or get through it.
Man, on that same note, and maybe this would be the last nugget that I occupy your time with, but you are one of the most creative coaches I've ever really like brainstormed with. Like you're one of, I know we don't do it often, but I especially think back to like NSCA, and one time you were, there in the office and we had the whiteboard going and talking different training concepts. And sometimes you'll just kind of randomly like shoot me something that you're doing from a programming perspective. And what I always love about the creativity is it it it's not like this super, I don't know, like high end, high tech, unrealistic, non transferable concepts. Like it's more things that I'm like, oh man, this could exist in any domain. So how, like, I guess, like, where do you think some of that creativity comes from? What drives that? Where are you sort of at with, I guess, the coaching side of stuff right now?
Cool. So, man, the creativity, honestly, like, let's start there. So we're going to go creativity and then coaching side. So, um, creativity wise, man, I think, thinking back, I think honestly, my parents, and I specifically remember having this conversation with my mom a long time ago, and just, she was always the person that was like, why not? Just try it. Like, why not? And, I think that the more you kind of ask yourself, why not? Like, there's so many ways to do certain things, and you're going to screw up sometimes, and that's okay. But I think the biggest thing is, even if your programming isn't perfect, or you're trying out things that maybe didn't do what you wanted to do, the point is you're getting people in and you're getting people interested. And I think too, like, anytime you can keep yourself mentally stimulated and try to figure out like how to fill different gaps and different holes, that keeps you interested in it as well. And I think that kind of ties back into the coaching thing. And um, you know, we know what squats are, we know what deadlifts are. We all taught Olympic lifting, and that's cool. But if you can figure out like ways to layer different things on top of that, and that especially that people haven't thought of before, and I think that's just super neat. And like, that's a never ending process.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest question is just, why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, and it's really, if everything else is in check, like, it's your worst case scenario is not that bad.
Dude, that brings me back to my favorite quote ever from the mouth of a coach, which is Jay Merlino saying, "It's just exercise." Like, why
It,
not? It
yeah, why not, dude? Like,
the man was mid interview with a bunch of coaches who were just kind of drilling him on X's and O's, and he like stopped us, and he's like, "Guys, I I get it, and I'm here for it, and I'll answer your questions, but we're talking about exercise."
yeah, yeah, yeah. And at the end of the day, too, to your point, like, especially tying in with the military stuff, like, at the end of the day, we're just trying to figure out how to get better, not in the weight room. So at the very most, we play an important second seat to that. And I think that's a lot of people miss that, and myself included. But at the end of the day, like, I don't care if you can squat. I mean, it's cool if you can squat 500 pounds. It's so cool. Like, everybody thinks like, like, it's awesome. It's also really cool if you run a 4.5 minute mile. But at the same time, like, as long as we're getting you in there and training you, and that stuff is translating to what we really need to get you good at, and that's your job, then again, I think that just opens even more possibilities to what training could look like, because you're not confined to like a rack. Like, you could really get creative, especially with like, you have mountains, you have terrain, you have weather. Like, let's play with that and see what we can, and let's see how we can, get you interested in that to ultimately make you better at your job.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, you can connect it too to other stuff outside of work. Like
Yeah.
those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. And the further the gap somebody is from where they are and where they could be, I think the more creativity you have. I think
Oh yeah.
it I think a lot of coaches would maybe disagree and say that just shows like they need simple, which I do agree with, right? Like, it's going to be very effective, give them the basics, and they just need like consistency over time. But I don't
Hmm.
know that consistency of simplicity is excludes creativity.
No, because I mean, I would agree that like people would probably need to say it just needs to be simple and like that's it. But like, on the flip side, you argue that anything that touches like the big ticket items, um, like different planes of movement or different ESD, whatever, like, does it really matter like what you're filling that with? I don't think so. Like, does it have to be a sled on a turf? I don't think so. Like, does it have to be a barbell? I don't think so. Because to the point of simplicity, literally anything is going to make people better, especially if they've never done it before. And especially if they're not comfortable with it, right? So like, find where they're comfortable with it and just let's play with them. Like, and at the end of the day, back to your point with Jay Merlino, it's just exercise. And at the end of the day, exercise is just play. Like, let's have fun. Like, it doesn't need to be this like, oh man, I got to go lift again. Like, this should be a fun time for you.
Yeah. To bring it full circle, I think that that's where a lot of folks struggle, maybe as they're stepping into busier chapters of their life. So things like parenthood. Um, is that they have this idea in their mind of they need to dedicate, a full hour, 5 days a week to whatever it is to, improve or get back to what they feel is the best version of themselves from a fitness standpoint. And that's not really true, right? Like you just need some kind of consistent exposure to something that challenges you a little bit.
Thinking back on it, what are some of the best lifts you've had? And it's usually the ones where you get together with your bros and you go into a weight room. There's no plan. There's no warm up, nothing. And you're just kind of like figuring out weights and you get through it. And it's probably just like, there's no tempos, there's no rest periods, there's no thought, right? But it's probably like but like you can go in there and just have fun and move, and it doesn't have to be that long, 30, 40 minutes. And like, and you got better. And that's it. It doesn't have to be that structured. And to add on to that, I'll lead this, like, I have a deal with myself now that I've gotten older. And because I've earned that right to do with myself, I guess I hope I'm right. But if I have that perfect lift and I have an hour uninterrupted, awesome. But there's some days, let's be real, you get under and you still feel good, but like, man, you're so mentally drained from something else that you just don't have that physically, mentally, whatever. But like, I'll make a deal with myself. Sometimes I'm like, all right, here's my sets and reps on my main lift on my primaries. If I can hit or exceed that, I don't have to do the rest of the lift. Because at the end of the day, like accessory lift is just driving your primaries. And if your primaries, if you're doing that, then it's working. And so now, and that could take what, with a good warm up and like kind of some lead up blocks into that. And I'm in and out in probably 20, 30 minutes sometimes. I'm fine. And like, and that some days that does more for me than anything else.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I definitely have started to like I will cut back the accessory volume, whether it's the sets or the reps or even like the load, and just like touch the movements, but not feel like I need to necessarily train them. I'm like, do I need this like, you know, 24 reps of like a pseudo heavy weight on this, I don't know, one leg RDL right now? Or like, can I just do a couple sets of 6 to 8 with a moderate load and leave there feeling really good? And by the way, probably, especially if I like deadlifted beforehand.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I just don't, I think less is more sometimes, quality matters. And as long as you can go in there and push the prescription like you need to, it doesn't have to be, you can never, in my opinion, you can never make up for lack of intensity with just sheer volume. So as long as you're hitting that intensity up front and you hit your mark, then volume will never detract from that.
And to take it one step further, you can't make up for lack of frequency with intensity or volume.
True. Yeah,
So that like
absolutely.
that the frequency of touch points, which is what you've been nailing, which is what opens the door for a 10-minute, a 20-minute, a 30-minute session. Because if you can just stoke that flame, as often as possible, then you're going to be better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just opens the door for other stuff too, right? And it's an easy conversation for people that may not like the weight room because it's pretty daunting to be like, hey, we're going to spend 90 minutes in here. And some people
Yeah.
don't want to hear that.
Yep.
But if you can be like, hey, we're going to do 20 minutes of this, and then you're going to get your lower body volume by doing the incline this weekend. Done. Why not? You know,
Why not?
why not?
Yeah, it definitely makes it sound considerably more approachable. Man, you've got me thinking back to all the lifts, like the 10-minute lifts, or that one of my favorite things is like lifting somewhere where I normally don't. So I'm just like, oh, what do they have here? What can I play with?
Oh, yeah.
What can I incorporate? Like sometimes in a hotel gym, sometimes visiting, other folks at their facilities, your buddy's garage, like whatever it is. And like, yeah, those are tend to be the best lifts because it's where you're just like creative. There's no rules. And you're just like,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah. Why not? Especially like, yeah, to your point, like you're limited on equipment and you're forced to make some decisions that, otherwise like, well, I can't really do that movement with that. I'm going to go over here and do that. But, you have to. So it's like, I literally have one kettlebell that's figured out for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, dude, Man, the hardest thing always when chatting with you is ending a conversation. I don't think it's something we do well normally,
No,
let alone on a
we just
podcast.
keep
But
on going,
yeah,
man.
I know. But you do have Greece outside your window right now. You got 3 boys and a wife waiting on you. But I do have one final question, which is how we close out this podcast. Probably the only consistency from week to week with this thing, but it is, if you had to give one bit of advice to the veteran community, so like this could be some senior folks you're working with who are kind of getting ready to transition toward the end of a career. This could also be somebody who you run into who's been out for 20 years. It could be one of those populations, the entire, but just think anyone within the veteran community, maybe you have someone even specific that comes to mind. Like, what's just that one bit of advice that you would give them to kind of, I guess, support their life as a veteran?
Oh man, there's a lot, but I think the thing that jumps to the front is I was told many years ago by a friend, I was like, asking them some of the best things that they've done, and it was their thing was very simple, and it was always ask. Don't be afraid to ask. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And like everybody has thoughts in their head. Everybody is curious. Just ask. Ask questions. You never know where it's going to lead you. So if it's a question about something or a question to someone or a question how they do it, or it doesn't matter what it is. Like it does not matter. You always ask the questions. Always ask.
Dude, that is, man, that is awesome. And what's funny, you didn't even know it when you said it, but that's probably really good advice for me. I'm somebody who can hate not knowing something and sometimes be scared to ask. In fact, I'm the like, let me write it down and go check it out later when I might have the fucking expert right in front of me.
Always ask. Yeah, always ask.
Is ask,
Why not?
dude. You're making you have too many good ideas. You're going to make it hard for me to figure out the title of this podcast, but that's a good thing. I will take that problem.
Perfect.
John, can't thank you enough for coming on today. I know you're kind of closing out one chapter, new journey, coming back stateside, to say the least. I'm stoked to have you
We're excited.
closer, and
Yeah.
if nothing else, to maybe challenge me a little bit more from a physical perspective.
Yeah, let's do it. For me, for the conditioning.
Hell yeah, dude! Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.